You've been told that changing your reality requires years of meditation, countless affirmations, or some mystical ability that only a chosen few possess. But what if I told you that your mind is already creating your physical reality right now, every single moment, through a quantum frequency that most people never learn to consciously access? What if the reason you're struggling to manifest what you want isn't because you lack power, but because you've been taught to override the very frequency that would make manifestation effortless? What if everything you've been told about how reality works has been keeping you trapped in a loop of trying harder instead of allowing deeper? Here's what's really happening. Right now, as you're listening to this, your brain is broadcasting a specific electromagnetic frequency. This isn't metaphysical speculation. This is measurable science. Your neurons fire in patterns that create electrical fields, and those fields extend beyond your skull into what quantum physicists call the field of infinite possibility. But here's the part that will blow your mind, the part that billionaires and those who seem to effortlessly attract wealth have figured out. Your brain doesn't just send signals into this field, it receives them back as your physical experience. Think about this for a moment. Every single thing you're experiencing right now, the device you're using to listen to this, the space you're in, the thoughts flowing through your mind, all of it started as frequency before it became form. The chair you're sitting on was once just an idea, a frequency pattern in someone's consciousness, before it became wood and fabric and the solid object supporting you right now. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating, and this is where quantum physics reveals something that will change everything you think you know about manifestation. In quantum mechanics, there's something called the observer effect. It means that the act of observation literally collapses infinite possibilities into one specific reality. Your consciousness isn't just watching your life unfold, it's actively choosing which possibility becomes real through the quality of your observation. Most people think they're observing their reality, but they're actually observing their resistance to their reality. They're broadcasting the frequency of what they don't want while desperately trying to think their way to what they do want. It's like trying to tune into a radio station by focusing really hard on the static. The harder you focus on the static, the more static you get. Let me share something that happened to a woman I know. She'd been trying to manifest a new relationship for 3 years. 3 years of vision boards, affirmations, dating apps, working on her self-worth, you name it. Nothing. Then one day she was walking through a bookstore, completely absorbed in browsing, not thinking about relationships at all, just genuinely enjoying the moment. She was in what I call pure frequency alignment, completely present, no resistance, no trying. A man approached her about the book she was holding, and 18 months later, they were married. What happened there wasn't coincidence. When she stopped broadcasting the frequency of lack, of trying, of needing something to be different, she naturally aligned with the frequency of what she actually wanted. She wasn't thinking about manifesting. She was being the version of herself who already had what she wanted, someone who was content, curious, present, engaged with life. This is the quantum frequency unlock that changes everything. Your reality isn't created by what you think about, it's created by the frequency you embody. And embodiment isn't something you do, it's something you allow by stopping the patterns that block it. Here's what's really wild about this. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field that's 60 times greater in amplitude than your brain's field. The HeartMath Institute has measured this. When your heart and brain are in coherent alignment, when they're broadcasting the same frequency, you create what they call heart-brain coherence. In this state, you're not trying to manifest, you are manifestation happening through human form. But here's the problem. Most of us have been conditioned to live in our heads, analyzing, planning, figuring out, trying to think our way to what we want. Meanwhile, our heart is broadcasting a completely different frequency, usually one of longing, fear, or protection. It's like having 2 radio stations playing at the same time. The universe receives mixed signals, so it delivers mixed results. The quantum frequency unlock happens when you learn to drop from your head into your heart, not as a technique, but as a way of being. When you stop trying to create your reality and start allowing your reality to create itself through you. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. Think about a time when you really wanted something and it felt hard to get. Maybe it was a job, a relationship, money, whatever. Notice how that wanting felt in your body. There's usually tension, a sense of reaching, of not having, of time pressure. That tension is resistance, and resistance creates interference in your quantum frequency. Now think about something that came to you easily, something that just flowed into your life without struggle. Maybe it was a friendship, an opportunity, an idea that led somewhere beautiful. Notice how different that felt. There was probably a sense of rightness, of natural timing, of things just clicking into place. That's what happens when your frequency is clear, when you're not broadcasting interference. The difference between these two experiences isn't luck, it's frequency. When you're aligned with the frequency of what you want, rather than the frequency of wanting it, reality rearranges itself to match that frequency. It has to. It's not a law you have to believe in. It's a law that's operating whether you believe in it or not. But here's where most people get tripped up. They try to get into the right frequency. They make it another thing to do, another technique to master. They think, okay, I need to feel abundant to attract abundance, so let me try to feel abundant. But trying to feel abundant while believing you're not abundant is like trying to be relaxed about being tense. The trying itself creates the very interference you're trying to eliminate. The quantum frequency unlock isn't about changing your frequency. It's about discovering the frequency that's already there underneath all the interference. It's about removing the static, not adding more signal. Think of it this way. Right now, every radio station in the world is broadcasting through the air around you. You're not creating those radio waves, you're tuning into them. Your consciousness works the same way. Every possible reality you could want to experience already exists as a frequency in the quantum field. You're not creating those possibilities. You're selecting which one becomes your experience through the quality of your inner tuning. When you understand this, everything changes. Instead of trying to make things happen, you start allowing things to happen through you. Instead of pushing against what you don't want, you start naturally gravitating toward what you do want. Instead of working on yourself to become worthy of what you desire, you recognize that your desires exist because you're already a vibrational match for them. This is why some people seem to attract wealth and opportunities effortlessly, while others struggle for years with the same techniques. It's not that some people are special or chosen. It's that some people have learned to get out of their own way and let their natural frequency do what it's designed to do. Your mind creates your physical reality not through force but through frequency, not through trying but through being, not through adding more, but through removing what's blocking what's already there. If you're starting to feel a spark of recognition, if something inside you is saying, yes, this makes sense, hit that subscribe button. We're going deeper into this, and you're going to want to be part of this community of people who are discovering how simple this really is. So here's what I want you to consider. What if the reason your manifestations feel hard isn't because you're doing something wrong, but because you've been taught to do something that's inherently backwards? What if instead of trying to create your reality, you learn to let your reality create itself through you? Let me tell you about the frequency of effortless manifestation, because this is where everything you think you know about how this works gets turned upside down. The people who seem to attract what they want without struggle aren't working harder. They're working with the natural flow of quantum mechanics instead of against it. In quantum physics, there's a principle called superposition. It means that all possibilities exist simultaneously until observation collapses them into one specific outcome. Right now, the version of your life where you have everything you want exists in superposition with the version where you don't. The question isn't whether that reality is possible. The question is, which reality are you collapsing into form through your observation? Most people are unknowingly collapsing the reality they don't want by observing from the frequency of lack, struggle, or not having enough. They look at their bank account and observe scarcity. They look at their relationships and observe loneliness. They look at their opportunities and observe limitation. Each observation strengthens the neural pathways that broadcast more of the same frequency. But here's what's absolutely revolutionary about this. You can change which reality you're collapsing into form, not by changing your external circumstances, but by changing the frequency from which you observe. When you observe your life from the frequency of abundance, you literally collapse different possibilities into your experience. This isn't positive thinking or pretending things are different than they are. This is understanding that your current circumstances are the result of previous observations, not a fixed reality you're stuck with. Every moment gives you a fresh opportunity to observe from a different frequency and collapse different possibilities into form. Let me share how this works in practical terms. A friend of mine was struggling with his business. Revenue was down, stress was high, and he was spending most of his mental energy trying to figure out how to fix the problems. One day, instead of focusing on what wasn't working, he spent an hour just appreciating what was working. Not as a technique, but because he genuinely started noticing things he'd been overlooking. He appreciated his team's dedication. He appreciated the clients who loved working with him. He appreciated the skills he'd developed over the years. As he did this, his whole nervous system shifted. He wasn't trying to feel better. He was actually seeing his business from a different frequency. From that frequency, solutions started appearing that he literally couldn't see when he was observing from the frequency of problems. Within 2 weeks, 3 new opportunities had presented themselves, not because he'd worked harder or done anything differently in terms of action, but because he was observing from the frequency of appreciation rather than the frequency of lack. Different frequency, different collapsed reality. This is the quantum frequency unlock in action. Your mind creates your physical reality by choosing which possibility to collapse into form through the quality of your observation. Change your frequency of observation. Change your collapsed reality. But here's the deeper layer that most people miss. The frequency you observe from isn't something you control with your thinking mind. It's something you embody with your entire being. It's not about thinking abundant thoughts. It's about being someone for whom abundance is natural. Think about someone you know who seems naturally abundant, not necessarily wealthy, but someone who has a quality of richness about them. Maybe they're generous with their time, or they always seem to find the good in situations, or opportunities just seem to flow to them. Notice that their abundance isn't something they're trying to create. It's something they are. That's because abundance isn't a frequency you broadcast, it's a frequency you are. When you're being abundant, you naturally observe from abundance, which naturally collapses abundant realities into form. It's not a technique. It's a way of existing. The same is true for any quality you want more of in your life. Love, creativity, peace, success. These aren't things you attract. They're things you are. When you're being loving, you observe from love and collapse loving realities. When you're being creative, you observe from creativity and collapse creative realities. This is why trying to manifest specific things often feels so effortful. You're trying to collapse a reality from a frequency you're not embodying. It's like trying to tune into a jazz station while broadcasting classical music. There's nothing wrong with either frequency, but they're not aligned. The quantum frequency unlock happens when you stop trying to get things and start being the frequency of what you want. Not as a strategy to get what you want, but as a recognition of what you actually are, underneath all the conditioning that says you're separate from what you desire. Here's something that might surprise you. Your desires aren't random. They're not wishes your ego has made up to make you happy. Your desires are frequency signatures of realities that already exist in the quantum field, calling you toward them. When you desire something, it's because you're already a vibrational match for it. The desire is the universe's way of letting you know what's available to you. But most of us have been taught to distrust our desires, to see them as proof that we're lacking something. We make our desires mean we're not enough as we are. So we try to earn our desires through hard work, or we try to deserve them by becoming better people, or we try to attract them by doing the right techniques. All of that trying creates interference in the very frequency that would naturally draw those desires into form. It's like having a conversation with someone while music is playing so loud you can't hear each other. The communication is happening, but the interference makes it impossible to receive clearly. When you understand that your desires are frequency signatures of what's already available to you, everything changes. Instead of trying to get what you want, you start allowing yourself to be who you are. Instead of working on yourself to become worthy, you start removing the beliefs and patterns that make you feel unworthy. This is the difference between manifestation as effort and manifestation as embodiment. Effort tries to bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Embodiment recognizes there is no gap. There's only interference blocking you from experiencing what's already true. Let me give you a way to feel this directly. Think of something you want that feels far away or hard to get. Notice the quality of energy around that wanting. There's probably a sense of distance, of time, of obstacles between you and that thing. That energy is interference. Now think of something you want that feels natural and available. Something you have no doubt you could have if you chose to. Maybe it's a conversation with a friend or a walk in nature or learning something new. Notice how different the energy feels. There's no sense of distance or obstacles, just natural availability. That's what clear frequency feels like. The quantum frequency unlock is learning to relate to all your desires from that second frequency, not because you're pretending they're easy to get, but because you're recognizing that the sense of difficulty is interference, not truth. What would it be like to want what you want from a place of natural availability rather than effortful reaching? What would it feel like to desire from abundance rather than lack? What would happen if you trusted that your desires exist because you're already aligned with them? These aren't just interesting questions, they're frequency adjustments. As you consider them, you're literally tuning your consciousness to a different station, one where what you want isn't separate from who you are. Ready to go even deeper into how this actually works in your daily life? Because what I'm about to share will show you exactly how your nervous system either supports or sabotages your quantum frequency, and how to work with your body's natural intelligence instead of against it. Here's what most people don't realize about manifestation, and this is going to completely change how you approach creating your reality. Your nervous system is either broadcasting coherence or chaos into the quantum field every single moment, and the quality of what you manifest is directly determined by which one you're broadcasting. When your nervous system is in a state of stress, fear, or urgency, it's literally sending scattered, incoherent signals into the field. It's like trying to have a clear phone conversation while standing next to a construction site. The information you're trying to transmit gets distorted by all the noise your stressed nervous system is creating. But when your nervous system is in coherence, when you're in a state of calm presence, your signals become clear and powerful. The field receives your frequency without interference and responds accordingly. This isn't just spiritual theory, this is measurable biophysics. The Institute of Heart Math has documented that when you're in heart coherence, your heart rhythm becomes smooth and sine wave-like. In this state, your heart, mind, and emotions are in energetic alignment and cooperation. But here's the incredible part. This coherent state is contagious. It affects everyone around you, and it creates what they call a coherent field that extends well beyond your physical body. Think about someone you know who has a naturally calming presence. When you're around them, you feel more settled, more like yourself. That's not just psychological. That's their coherent nervous system entraining your nervous system into coherence. They're literally broadcasting a frequency that helps organize the field around them. Now imagine what happens when you learn to generate that coherence intentionally, not as a technique you do sometimes, but as your natural way of being. You become a walking field of organized energy that naturally attracts experiences that match that organization. But here's where it gets really interesting. Most people think they need to calm their nervous system in order to manifest what they want. But it's actually the opposite. When you're truly aligned with what you want, when you're embodying the frequency of your desire, your nervous system naturally settles into coherence. Stress and anxiety are actually signs that you're trying to create from misalignment. Let me explain what I mean. Think about a time when you were doing something you absolutely loved, something that felt completely natural and right. Maybe you were having a deep conversation with someone you care about, or working on a project that excited you, or simply enjoying a moment of beauty. Notice that in those moments there was no stress about the outcome. You weren't worried about whether you were doing it right or whether it would work out. You were simply present with what was happening. That presence is your nervous system in its natural state of coherence. And from that state, things flow. Conversations go deeper than expected. Projects develop in ways you couldn't have planned. Beautiful moments expand into beautiful experiences. That's not coincidence. That's coherence creating coherent outcomes. The quantum frequency unlock happens when you realize that this coherent state isn't something you have to earn or achieve. It's your natural state when you're not interfering with it. Every time you try to force an outcome, every time you worry about whether something will work, every time you push against what's happening, you're creating interference in your own system. Your body is incredibly intelligent. It knows the difference between authentic desire and manufactured wanting. It knows the difference between natural action and forced effort. It knows the difference between trust and control, and it responds to each of these with completely different neurochemistry. When you're in authentic desire, your body produces oxytocin, the bonding hormone. When you're in natural action, your body produces dopamine, the reward chemical. When you're in trust, your body produces GABA, the calming neurotransmitter. This neurochemistry creates the internal environment for coherent manifestation. But when you're in manufactured wanting, your body produces cortisol, the stress hormone. When you're in forced effort, your body produces adrenaline, the emergency chemical. When you're in control mode, your body produces norepinephrine, the anxiety neurotransmitter. This neurochemistry creates internal chaos that broadcasts incoherent signals into the field. Here's a practical example of how this works. I know a woman who wanted to start her own business. For months, she tried to figure out the perfect business plan, the right marketing strategy, the ideal timing. The more she planned and strategized, the more overwhelmed and anxious she became. Her nervous system was in constant stress mode, broadcasting incoherence. Then one day, she stopped trying to figure it all out. She simply started doing the one thing that felt most natural and exciting to her, helping people organize their homes. She wasn't trying to build a business, she was just doing what she loved. Her nervous system shifted into coherence because she was aligned with authentic action. Within 3 months, she had more clients than she could handle. People were referring their friends. Opportunities were appearing that she never could have planned. Her business grew organically because she was broadcasting coherence instead of chaos. The difference wasn't in what she did externally, it was in the internal state she was doing it from. Same person, same skills, same market, but completely different results because of completely different neurochemistry. This is why so many manifestation techniques don't work for most people. They're trying to use their thinking mind to override their nervous system's natural intelligence. They're trying to think their way into coherence while their body is broadcasting stress. It's like trying to sing a lullaby while running from a tiger. The technique might be perfect, but the internal state makes it impossible to execute effectively. The quantum frequency unlock isn't about learning new techniques. It's about learning to trust your body's natural wisdom. Your body already knows how to be in coherence. It already knows how to broadcast clear signals into the field. It already knows the difference between aligned action and misaligned effort. But most of us have been conditioned to override these natural signals. We've been taught that if something feels easy, we must be doing it wrong. We've been taught that if we're not struggling, we're not working hard enough. We've been taught that if we're not worried, we're not being responsible. All of this conditioning creates chronic interference in our natural frequency. We end up living in a constant state of low-level stress, always trying to make things happen instead of allowing things to happen through us. Here's what's revolutionary about understanding this. You don't have to heal all your conditioning before you can manifest coherently. You just have to stop reinforcing the conditioning in this moment. Every time you choose trust over control, every time you choose presence over anxiety, every time you choose authentic action over forced effort, you're tuning your nervous system back to its natural frequency. And your nervous system has an incredible capacity for rapid recalibration. Unlike your thinking mind, which can take years to change deep beliefs, your nervous system can shift into coherence in seconds when you give it permission to do what it naturally wants to do. Let me share a simple way to experience this directly. Think of something you want that currently feels stressful or difficult. Notice how your body feels when you think about it. There's probably tension somewhere, maybe in your chest or shoulders or stomach. That tension is your nervous system responding to the frequency of struggle. Now, instead of thinking about getting that thing, think about being the kind of person for whom that thing would be natural. If you want more money, think about being someone who naturally creates value. If you want a relationship, think about being someone who naturally loves and is loved. If you want better health, think about being someone who naturally cares for themselves. Notice how different your body feels when you shift from wanting something to being someone. The tension probably softens. Your breathing probably deepens. That's your nervous system recognizing alignment and shifting into coherence. This is the difference between manifestation as acquisition and manifestation as embodiment. Acquisition tries to get something from outside yourself. Embodiment recognizes that what you want is a quality of being that's already available inside yourself. When you're being abundant, you don't need to attract abundance. You are abundance expressing itself through your unique form. When you're being loving, you don't need to find love. You are love discovering itself in relationship. When you're being creative, you don't need to become creative. You are creativity flowing through human consciousness. This shift from having to being is the quantum frequency unlock. It's the recognition that you're not separate from what you desire. You're the very consciousness through which your desires want to express themselves. But here's where most people get confused. They think being abundant means pretending they have money when they don't, or being loving means being nice to people who treat them badly. That's not embodiment, that's performance. And performance creates the same kind of stress in your nervous system as trying to get something. True embodiment is much more subtle and much more powerful. It's the recognition of what's already true about you underneath all the stories about what you lack. It's the remembering of your natural state before you learn to believe you were separate from what you want. You were born abundant, not with money, but with the capacity to create value, to appreciate beauty, to generate joy. You were born loving, not perfectly, but with an open heart that naturally connects with life. You were born creative, not as an artist necessarily, but as consciousness that naturally expresses its uniqueness. All of these qualities are still here right now, underneath whatever conditioning has convinced you that you need to earn them or develop them or attract them from somewhere else. The quantum frequency unlock is the recognition that what you're seeking is what you are. When you really get this, not just intellectually but in your cells, everything changes. You stop trying to become someone else and start allowing yourself to be who you are. You stop trying to get things and start expressing the qualities that naturally attract those things. This is why some people seem to effortlessly attract opportunities while others struggle with the same techniques. It's not that some people are more spiritual or more skilled. It's that some people are expressing their natural qualities while others are trying to acquire qualities they think they don't have. Your mind creates your physical reality not by figuring out how to get what you want, but by embodying what you are, not by broadcasting desire into the field, but by being the consciousness through which desire expresses itself as form. If this is resonating with you, if you're starting to feel the truth of this in your body, make sure you're subscribed because we're going even deeper, and I want to hear from you in the comments. Drop one word that describes what you're feeling right now as you consider the possibility that you already are what you're seeking. Now, let me show you exactly how this embodiment translates into practical reality creation, because this is where the rubber meets the road. How do you actually live from this understanding in a world that seems to operate by completely different rules? Here's what I've discovered after years of studying this and working with thousands of people who've successfully made this shift. The external world isn't operating by different rules, it's responding to the rules you're unconsciously broadcasting through your embodied frequency. Change your embodied frequency, and the world literally rearranges itself to match. But embodiment isn't something you do. It's something you allow by removing what's blocking it. Most people are carrying around layers of conditioning that make them feel separate from their natural qualities. They've been told they're not enough, not worthy, not capable, not deserving. And they've internalized these messages so deeply that they feel true. But here's what's absolutely crucial to understand. These limiting beliefs aren't facts about you. They're interference patterns in your consciousness. They're like static on a radio that makes it hard to hear the music clearly. The music is still playing perfectly, but the static makes it sound distorted. Your natural abundance is still here, but it might be covered by beliefs about scarcity. Your natural creativity is still here, but it might be covered by beliefs about not being artistic enough. Your natural capacity for love is still here, but it might be covered by beliefs about not being lovable. The quantum frequency unlock happens when you realize that you don't have to fix these beliefs or heal all your conditioning before you can embody your natural qualities. You just have to stop feeding the interference and start tuning into what's already clear. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. I worked with a man who believed he wasn't good with money. He had decades of evidence to support this belief: failed businesses, credit card debt, never seeming to get ahead financially. Every time he tried to improve his financial situation, he would unconsciously sabotage himself because deep down, he believed he wasn't the kind of person who could be successful with money. But instead of trying to change his beliefs about money, we focused on discovering his natural capacity to create value. Not value in terms of dollars, but value in terms of contribution. When he stopped trying to make money and started focusing on how he could genuinely help people, everything shifted. He started a small consulting practice helping local businesses with their operations, not because he thought it would make him rich, but because he genuinely enjoyed solving organizational problems. His nervous system was in coherence because he was expressing a natural gift rather than trying to overcome a perceived limitation. Within a year, his business was generating 6 figures. Not because he'd healed his money blocks or changed his beliefs, but because he was embodying his natural capacity to create value. The money was simply the external reflection of the internal shift from trying to get something to expressing something. This is how embodiment creates reality. When you express your natural qualities, the world responds by reflecting those qualities back to you in form. When you embody abundance, abundant experiences show up. When you embody love, loving relationships appear. When you embody creativity, creative opportunities manifest. But here's the key. You have to embody these qualities for their own sake, not as a strategy to get something. The moment you try to use embodiment to manipulate outcomes, you're back in the frequency of trying to get something, which creates the very interference you're trying to eliminate. True embodiment is unconditional. You're abundant because abundance is your nature, not because you want to attract money. You're loving because love is what you are, not because you want to find a partner. You're creative because creativity is how consciousness expresses through you, not because you want to become an artist. This unconditional embodiment is what creates the coherent field that naturally attracts coherent experiences. When you're being abundant for the sake of abundance itself, you become a magnet for abundant opportunities. When you're being loving for the sake of love itself, you become irresistible to loving connections. The people who seem to effortlessly manifest what they want have discovered this secret. They're not trying to get anything. They're expressing everything they are, and the world responds to that expression by providing endless opportunities for that expression to expand and flourish. This is the practical magic of quantum frequency. When you align with what you are rather than trying to get what you want, reality reorganizes itself around your embodied frequency. It's not that you're manipulating the quantum field, it's that you're allowing the quantum field to express itself through you without interference. But here's where most people get stuck. They understand this intellectually, but they don't know how to make the shift from trying to being. They don't know how to move from the frequency of lack to the frequency of embodiment when their external circumstances seem to prove that they don't have what they want. The bridge between understanding and embodiment is what I call quantum allowing. It's the recognition that you don't have to feel abundant to be abundant. You just have to stop feeling scarce. You don't have to feel lovable to be loving. You just have to stop feeling unlovable. You don't have to feel creative to be creative. You just have to stop feeling blocked. Quantum allowing is the art of removing interference rather than adding effort. Every time you catch yourself in a story about what you lack, you gently redirect your attention to what's actually here. Every time you notice yourself trying to make something happen, you soften into allowing something to happen through you. This isn't passive waiting, it's active allowing. It's the most powerful thing you can do because you're working with the fundamental forces of creation rather than against them. You're aligning with how reality actually works rather than how you think it should work. Here's a simple practice that can help you feel this shift directly. Think of an area of your life where you've been trying to make something happen. Notice the quality of energy in that trying. There's probably effort, tension, a sense of pushing against something. Now imagine that what you want is like a beach ball you've been holding underwater. The trying is the effort to keep it submerged. What would happen if you simply let go? The ball would naturally rise to the surface without any effort from you. Your desires are like that beach ball. They want to surface into your experience, but your trying to make them happen is actually the force that's keeping them submerged. The quantum frequency unlock is learning to let go and trust the natural buoyancy of what wants to emerge through you. This letting go isn't giving up. It's giving in to the natural flow of creation. It's recognizing that you're not the one making things happen. You're the one through whom things happen when you stop interfering with the process. What would it feel like to want what you want from this place of natural allowing rather than effortful trying? What would it be like to trust that your desires are already on their way to you, and your job is simply to stay in alignment with receiving them? These aren't just beautiful concepts, they're practical instructions for how to work with quantum mechanics instead of against it. And when you really start living from this understanding, when you really start embodying your natural qualities instead of trying to acquire what you think you lack, the speed at which your reality transforms will absolutely astound you. But there's an even deeper layer to this that most people never discover, and it has to do with how your individual frequency connects with the collective field in ways that can accelerate your manifestations beyond what seems individually possible. This is where quantum manifestation becomes truly extraordinary. And it's something that the most successful manifestors understand intuitively, even if they can't explain it scientifically. Here's what's happening at the deepest level. Your individual consciousness isn't separate from the collective consciousness of humanity. We're all connected through what physicists call the quantum field, and what happens in your individual field affects the entire collective field. When you embody a high-frequency state like abundance, love, or creativity, you're not just changing your personal reality. You're contributing to a collective shift that makes it easier for everyone to access those same frequencies. This is why when one person in a family heals a generational pattern, it often affects the entire family lineage. This is why when one person in a community starts thriving, It creates opportunities for others to thrive. This is why breakthrough innovations often appear simultaneously in multiple places around the world. We're all tapping into the same field of infinite possibility, and when one person accesses a new frequency, it becomes available to everyone. But here's the incredible part that will change how you think about your personal manifestation journey. When you embody your natural qualities, when you live from authentic abundance and love and creativity, you're not just creating your own reality, you're literally making it easier for others to access those same qualities. Your coherent frequency creates what scientists call morphic resonance, a field effect that supports others in finding their own coherence. Think about this for a moment. Every time you choose love over fear, you're strengthening the morphic field of love for everyone. Every time you choose abundance over scarcity, you're making it easier for others to access abundance. Every time you choose trust over control, you're contributing to a collective field of trust that supports everyone's manifestations. This means your personal transformation isn't just personal, it's a gift to the entire human family. When you do the inner work of embodying your natural frequency, you're participating in the evolution of human consciousness itself. You're helping to create a world where manifestation becomes easier and more natural for everyone. But it also means you have access to support that goes far beyond your individual capacity. When you align with high-frequency states, you're connecting with everyone who has ever embodied those states. You're tapping into the accumulated wisdom and power of every person who has ever lived from authentic abundance, love, creativity, and joy. This is why meditation practices often speak about connecting with lineages of teachers and masters. It's not just metaphorical, it's quantum mechanical. When you embody the same frequency that enlightened beings have embodied throughout history, you literally connect with their field of influence. Their coherence supports your coherence. I've seen this happen countless times with people who make the shift from trying to embody. Suddenly they start having insights that seem to come from beyond their individual knowledge. They start receiving guidance that feels like it's coming from a deeper wisdom. They start attracting opportunities and connections that seem almost orchestrated by some greater intelligence. This isn't mystical, it's practical quantum physics. When your individual field comes into coherence, it naturally entrains with other coherent fields. You become part of a network of consciousness that's working together to create positive change in the world. Your manifestations become supported by forces far greater than your individual will or effort. This is why the most powerful manifestors often speak about feeling guided or supported by something larger than themselves. They're not making things happen through personal force. They're allowing things to happen through them as part of a larger orchestration of consciousness. When you really understand this, it changes everything about how you approach manifestation. Instead of trying to create your reality in isolation, you start participating in a collective creation that's much more powerful and much more fun than anything you could accomplish alone. Your quantum frequency unlock isn't just about improving your personal life. It's about participating in the transformation of human consciousness itself. Every time you choose embodiment over trying, every time you choose allowing over forcing, every time you choose trust over control, you're contributing to a world where these ways of being become more natural and accessible for everyone. This is the ultimate invitation of quantum manifestation, not just to create the life you want, but to become the kind of person whose very presence makes it easier for others to access their own natural abundance, love, and creativity. To become someone whose coherent frequency contributes to the healing and evolution of our entire human family. What would it mean to you to know that your personal transformation is actually a gift to everyone you'll ever encounter? What would it feel like to approach your manifestation journey not just as personal development, but as conscious participation in the evolution of human consciousness itself? These questions aren't just inspiring, they're activating. As you consider them, you're literally tuning into the collective field of transformation and allowing it to support your individual journey in ways that will surprise and delight you. Ready to discover the final piece that makes all of this practically applicable in your daily life? Because what I'm about to share will show you exactly how to maintain this frequency in a world that often seems designed to pull you back into old patterns of struggle and separation. Here's the practical reality of living from quantum frequency in a world that often operates from fear, scarcity, and separation. You're going to be challenged. Your old patterns are going to try to reassert themselves. The people around you might not understand the shift you're making. The external world might seem to push back against your new way of being. This is completely normal. and actually a sign that you're making real change. When you start embodying a different frequency, everything that's not aligned with that frequency will come up to be cleared. Old fears will surface. Limiting beliefs will seem louder. Situations that trigger your insecurities will appear. Most people interpret this as evidence that the new approach isn't working, so they go back to their old ways of trying and forcing and controlling. But this clearing process is actually how quantum transformation works. The field is reorganizing itself around your new frequency, and everything that doesn't match has to be released. The key is to stay anchored in embodiment rather than getting pulled back into reaction. When old patterns arise, instead of fighting them or trying to fix them, you simply return to being who you are underneath them. When fear comes up, you don't try to become fearless. You remember the love that's always been here. When scarcity thoughts arise, you don't try to think abundant thoughts. You connect with your natural capacity to appreciate what's already present. This is the daily practice of quantum frequency living. Not perfection, but return. Not never getting triggered, but knowing how to come back to center. Not having all the answers, but trusting the intelligence that's always guiding you toward your highest expression. And here's what's beautiful about this process. The more you practice returning to your natural frequency, the less you get pulled out of it. The more you embody your authentic qualities, the more naturally those qualities express themselves. The more you trust the process of quantum creation, the more evidence you receive that the process is trustworthy. Over time, living from coherence becomes more natural than living from chaos. Embodying abundance becomes easier than struggling with scarcity. Allowing manifestation becomes more effortless than trying to force outcomes. You start to realize that this isn't just a technique for getting what you want. It's a completely different way of being human. It's a return to your natural state of creative partnership with life itself. It's the recognition that you're not separate from the intelligence that creates galaxies and grows flowers and beats your heart without your conscious effort. When you live from this recognition, manifestation stops being something you do and becomes something you are. You stop trying to create your reality and start allowing reality to create itself through you. You stop being someone who wants things and start being someone through whom life expresses its infinite creativity and abundance. This is the quantum frequency unlock in its fullest expression. Not just a method for manifesting, but a way of being that transforms everything it touches. Not just personal transformation, but participation in the evolution of consciousness itself. Your mind creates your physical reality not through effort or technique, but through the simple recognition of what you are and the willingness to let that truth express itself without interference. When you embody this understanding, when you live from this frequency, you become a walking demonstration that another way of being human is possible. You become living proof that abundance is natural, that love is our true nature, that creativity is how consciousness expresses through form, and that manifestation is simply what happens when we stop interfering with the natural flow of life through us. The world needs people who understand this. The world needs people who are willing to live from coherence in the midst of chaos, who are willing to embody abundance in the face of apparent scarcity, who are willing to trust the intelligence of life even when the mind can't figure out how things will work. You are one of those people, not because you're special or chosen, but because you're here, listening to this, feeling the recognition of truth in your cells. That recognition isn't random. It's your consciousness remembering what it came here to express. So here's my invitation to you. Stop trying so hard. Stop making manifestation complicated. Stop believing you need to earn what you are or attract what you already embody. Your quantum frequency is already perfect. Your natural capacity for abundance, love, and creativity is already here. Your ability to create reality through embodiment is already activated. All you have to do is stop interfering with what's already working perfectly. All you have to do is trust the intelligence that brought you here and let it express itself through your unique form. All you have to do is be who you are and let the world rearrange itself around that truth. If you're ready to live from this understanding, if you're ready to embody your natural frequency and see what wants to create itself through you, then subscribe to this channel because we're just getting started. This community is for people who are ready to remember what they are and let that remembering transform everything. And I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share one thing you're ready to stop trying to make happen and start allowing to happen through you. Your sharing might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to make their own quantum frequency unlock. The future belongs to people who understand that consciousness creates reality, that embodiment is more powerful than effort, and that we're all connected through an infinite field of creative possibility. You're part of that future. You're helping to create it with every choice you make to embody truth rather than struggle with illusion. Welcome to your quantum frequency unlock. Welcome to the recognition of what you are. Welcome to the most natural and powerful way of creating reality that has ever existed, the way that works through being rather than doing, through embodiment rather than effort, through trust rather than control. Your mind creates your physical reality through the simple, profound act of being who you truly are.